My name is Scott Barnes, and I'm in Los Angeles. I'm based out of Los Angeles, and I mostly work on movies. And I've been using Hog since the Hog 2 days, 1999, I think. So I've been using Hog for quite a while, and the idea behind this video basically was that ever since pixel mapping came around, especially the last couple of years or so, I've had a lot of situations where I've had users come in and help me on shows or take over for me, and I've come across a lot of guys and gals who fancy themselves to be fairly good Hog people and Hog programmers, and I'm sure they really are, and for the most part they are capable of doing a lot. But it seemed like pixel mapping was the one thing everybody was kind of like, I've never really done that, or I've done very little of that, or I don't know a lot of that. And the thing is, I use it quite a bit. If you've ever worked with me before, which some of you have, you know that I try to use it. I don't use it because I'm afraid to use effects or chases. I still use a lot of that too. Sometimes I use a combination of them. But I use it because in my business, in my industry, it's a little bit like busking at times. And so you got to really have ways of doing things and making changes quick. So pixel mapping usually always seems to allow me the freedom to change things fast, especially with a large amount of fixtures, which really saves your ass. So that's sort of what I've kind of come to, the reason why I want to do this video, the stream, is just to sort of enlighten some of you who may have used it sparingly and not a lot, and just show you some of the things I do. I'm not the book on it, it's just my style. A lot of other people have great styles of doing it, and I'm a big believer that if you see somebody doing something that you never thought of before, then try to apply it to your workflow as well. We all learn from other people. I did. I'm sure a lot of you have too. So this is just my way of showing you a few things that might spark some ideas for you. Or maybe you never even thought of this. Some of you probably done a lot of things that I'm going to show you today, and that's great too. So with that, I'm going to move on. I'm going to start. I have monitors everywhere, so I have this OBS thing so I can switch to my display or my Droid camera behind me. I have two Hog 4s behind me. So this is a camera that's on the desk in case I need to go over there and just show you real quick. Most of the stuff I'm going to do is going to be on this display or this display or this display. But I do have a console back there, and the Hog PC on this computer is tied in, it's networked in with the other two consoles. So the console directly behind me is the server. And then I have a client next to me, and I have a client with Hog PC. By the way, I'm not going to get too much into this. I am running beta. This is beta 3 of 3.14. So you might see some things you have never seen before, which is, I've been told by the higher ups, is totally okay. I'm not going to get really a lot into that. This is not a video about beta and all the new features, but I will point out a few things as I go that are new. Mostly it's in the patch world, which we're not going to do a whole lot with patch. We're going to do from some setup stuff, but then other than that, we're not going to do a whole lot more. So I'm going to show you a couple things real quick before I get into actually setting up, and we're going to do some samples, some things that I've done before. I just wanted to show you this. These are the three breakdowns basically of how I feel pixel maps can be used. Call it workflow, call it functionality, whatever, use. For most of you, because I know most of you are live people, it's a general use is your go-to thing. You're going to use it the way you've probably been taught already, which is you're going to be programming the two components. The two components of pixel mappings are the fixtures themselves that you're going to pixel map, and then the pixel layers that are driving the media. Those are the two components to make up pixel maps. Without one of those, you don't have pixel mapping. So your general use is going to basically be, you're going to be programming the fixtures to and from pixel map, meaning you're going to be doing regular effects, regular chases, regular static looks, using palettes, whatever, and then you're going to have a queue where you go into pixel mapping, right? And then you're also going to be doing that with your pixel layers. Your pixel layers, obviously, we'll get into this later if you don't know, but pixel layers are the hog fixtures that are the media layers that will be sending the media to the fixtures, and we'll get into that later. But your general use means you're going to be programming queues that go to and from pixel mapping and non-pixel mapping, and then your pixel layers are also going to be programmed. You're going to have queues where it's going to do this layer is going to be this media, and then you're going to switch to another piece of content, or you're going to change it up, you're going to speed it up, you're going to do things to it. So your programming basically is a combination of both things happening within your queues or queue lists or scenes. That's your general use, and that's what everybody probably already knows. So like you're going to have like your rock concert, basically your rig is going to be, you're going to pixel map across all these fixtures, and then you're going to change the media to something else later on in a different song or whatever. All right, so that's typical use. All right, so the other two uses that a lot of people probably don't really think of is a pixel layer only use. So this is basically when you take wait, let me make sure this is right. Yeah, pixel layer only. So what you're doing here is when you have a large array of fixtures, like thousands, let's say, RGB fixtures or just regular incandescent bulbs or whatever, you're not really going to want to mess with those much because it's just so much. Just bringing all those fixtures into the programmer is going to bog your system. Also, playing them across, displaying them on your actual console might bog your system a little bit. But it is something you want to map. So a pixel layer only use would be when you take all those and you map the plot to them, and then you just record that into a scene or a queue that just runs in the background all the time, and you never mess with those fixtures ever again. All right? You're just sitting back there in the plot view all the time, already having the plot attached to them. And then the rest of the time that you're programming, you're only messing with the pixel layers. So, sorry, I thought my camera was hot, but it wasn't. So the only time you're ever programming is when you, I'm going to do this. There we go. Is when you're just messing with the pixel layers. So a good example of this would be something I just recently worked on. It was a musical for Netflix. Has not come out yet. But we had this massive sign that had about 3,500 light bulbs in it. And obviously, I'm not going to program 3,500 light bulbs. I mean, I could certainly try, especially when I'm spelling letters across it. I'm not going to do that the typical way. I'm going to pixel map that. So I don't want to have to keep opening my editor and messing and going to programmer and bringing in those 3,500 fixtures. I'm just going to map those to the plot. I'm going to leave those in a background queue somewhere, not even my main queue list, just another queue that I'm just going to set the priority high, and they'll never get stepped on. And then the rest of the time, all I got to mess with is just the layers that I have on the actual pixel map. So I've whittled down 3,500 fixtures into just one or two fixtures. That's it. In that particular case there, it's actually a layer per letter so that I could manipulate the letters how I want and maybe chase them and do things with them. But I didn't need all those pixels. I didn't need all those fixtures. So I narrowed that down to it. So that would be what I call the pixel layer only use, which would be number 2. And that works really primarily for large array stuff. That's when you might have an instance on a smaller array where you do it, but that's just another way of doing it. The last one, the third one, is fixtures only, which is the flip-flop of that. Meaning you're going to set your pixel layers to have some sort of content on them, and they're always going to have that content all the time. It's going to be running, and it's never going to change. And you really are just going to be programming the fixtures to go in and out. And like maybe they're off, maybe they're constant, or maybe they go to your media, your pixel map. in my mind, that's sort of like you're treating the pixel layer like a palette, basically, and you're applying the plot to those fixtures like you would a palette, like a beam palette or a color palette. Basically, it's a combination of both. A good example of that would be when I do fire effects. So when I do fire effects, this is from Avengers. So when I do fire effects, these are just 12 light maxi brutes, and then some down here are 6 light par bars or maxi bars. Over here are some airy S360 sky panel S360s. So this situation is where the media that I have, the pixel layers that I have mapped to these different pixel maps, and you'll notice this one plot view has multiple pixel maps, but for the most part, they're all running the same media, and I'll get into that later on. So they're just running fire content. Like one of these files over here is running on all of these, and I just leave that running. It's just always going because it's fire. It's organic. There's no start or stop. It loops, and it's just the same thing. And then throughout my day of programming, I'll just take these fixtures and either apply the pixel map or apply the plot, basically, or maybe I'll just have them constant, or maybe I'll even chase them or do something separate from the pixel map. But I know that if I apply that plot, the fire will happen. So it's basically a fire palette. So that is another way I treat pixel maps. And you have to just kind of figure that out as you go. So on your day, you just sort of, as with anything, you just kind of have to figure out on the fly, like, what's the best way that I need to do this? What's the best way that's going to allow me the freedom to make changes quickly? And so you'll figure that out on your own. And these are the 3 ways that I basically use pixel maps. All right, so now with that being said, let me see if there's any questions about that. I don't even know. Probably not, because I'm 10-second delay. So I'll get to questions later. Hello to Kazakhstan. Did I say that right? Mark, I know you're in Germany. Hello to Germany. Moscow. Wow. Hello, Moscow. That's crazy. Noah Shane. Oh my God. What's up, Noah? All right, so I'm going to keep going. All right, so here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to basically go through some step-by-step of how I sort of set up the console, not just the pixel maps, but the console itself, and the things I need to support me with pixel maps. So bear with me. We're going to go through a few steps here, and then I'm going to get into some actual programming of pixel maps and content and stuff. All right, so the first thing I'm going to do is for this little test, for this little video, is we're going to create some compound fixtures, or some dotted fixtures. The difference between compound and dotted, basically they're the same. Compound fixtures are already in the library, and they're already compound fixtures. They're dotted fixtures that are already in the library, and you can expand that by show details. But that's a compound fixture, or you can make your own compound fixture by just taking a selection of fixtures and making them dotted, and that's what we're going to do right now. So rather than use compound fixtures, I'm going to use dotted fixtures just so that you can see how I do it. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to patch, and this is where it's going to look a little different to some of you guys. And I'm going to add fixtures. And we're going to type in RGB cell, and there's what I want right there. And I already know, just because I did the math, I'm going to have 168 of them. So basically, I'm going to make some old school Color Force 72s, not the new ones, the Series 1s. I'm going to make 14 of them. So I'm going to hit that and hit apply. And then I'm also going to add some pixel layers. So for that, I'm just going to scroll down to Hog. You can follow along if you want, but I'm just going to show you. So I'm just going to add 6 layers. We might need to add more later, but for now I'm just going to add 6 layers. Okay, so we'll hit apply and hit OK. And so now you'll see there's my RGB cells. All these fixtures up here are because I'm in a file that I had originally used for building a punt page, which I'm not going to get into today. But I am going to use this this as sort of a sample. Matter of fact, I sort of stripped it from all the punt stuff. So all the scenes and stuff are out of this. I think I stripped everything, matter of fact. So we're going to build a lot of stuff from scratch. Okay, so here's my, and they started at 601 just because all these fixtures are already using other user numbers. First thing I want to do though is I want to make these compound fixtures. So I'm going to select the first one and I'm going to scroll all the way down to the last one, which is right here. And before I select it, I'm gonna hold the through key and then select that last one. So now it's basically selected, that whole range is selected. And now if I hit set, this is what we're gonna do. We're gonna keep the 601 as our first number, but we're gonna make them dotted fixtures. So we're gonna go 601.0, which tells the console that you're going to be creating dotted fixtures. But we're going to use the slash key and say I want to go every 12 fixtures start over. So we're going to hit enter, and now you can see I got 601.1 through .12, and then I got 602.1 through .12, and all the way to, if my math was right, 614. So 614 is the last one. So we're just going to use these as our test fixtures for now. The pixel layers started at 1. I'm going to leave those at 1. I'm not going to change that. I might get into user numbers later. Obviously, when I do a large show, I'm probably going to number these somewhere else. And typically for me, it's in the 100 to 200s because I'm using like 1000s and 900s and 800s and 700s for the bigger range of fixtures, like movers and stuff like that. So we're going to stick to that. Now we're going to need to patch these. This is where it's a little different. I'm not going to get too much into it. I am going to show you though that now in the console you have the ability to set linear outputs. So this is the output window for the processor of that console behind me, and I can add more universes and they continue on. They're not, it's the next one would be 17, then 18, then 19. So your numbering now is linear. So it's not 1 through 16 for that processor, 1 through 16 for that processor. It is now 1 through whatever you want. In addition to that, you also get to name your universes. So you'll see that I have letters. That's by default. So it's going to do it by default, which is really cool. But you can name them whatever. I can name that a whole name if I want. If I know my universe 1 is going to be nothing but movers, I can call it movers. So this is a cool thing they're working on. It's getting close to release, but I don't know when. Don't ask me when. But I know it's in beta 3. Probably got a couple more betas to go through, but we'll see. I can tell you right now, this beta is rock solid. So there's just a few little things to iron out, I'm sure. So that's where you set up your universes. And then, of course, you patch in the same place you've always patched, but it's a little different. So we're going to do 601 through enter, which grabs all of them, because I believe I can fit all of these in one universe. And then we go at, and I'm going to put them in universe 11, which is K, and hit OK. So there you go. There's all of them patched. So that part's done. Now, a lot of people that don't do a lot of pixel mapping don't realize this. These do not need to be patched. This is not where you patch. You could certainly try if you want, but it doesn't need to happen. The pixel layers are an internal fixture. It's a virtual fixture within the console, so it doesn't have any physical DMX going out. So you don't need to patch those. That's all internal. All right, so let's get rid of that window, and now let's start building some groups and a plot and whatnot. Let me just make sure I'm doing this right. Lighting fixture, pixel layer, how many numbering? All right, so I think the first thing I'm going to do is let's just build a quick view. I'm going to make groups in this, and I'm going to make this my programmer. And then over here, you know what I'll do is I'll go ahead and open up and record a plot. So the way you record a plot is this is your plot window, and let me just show you real quick what I did is I just hit open, and then I hit plots, and then opens up that window. So the next thing I would do is hit record. I'm using my keyboard, and I know I shouldn't be doing it. I should be using the on screen so you can see it. So here's the record button, and I'm going to hit that, and that I just created a plot. Now the way you open that plot to edit it is a couple ways. If you have the window open, you can just hold the open key down and then hit that, and that opens it up. My style of working is I usually don't have this window open other than just when I originally create it or label it. Which, by the way, when I label it, and I'll tell you why in a second, I'm going to label this plot right now. We'll just call it. What I do with the labels is I actually put the number of the plot before the name, and I'll tell you why in a second. So for this one, I would go 1, and I usually do a dash, and then I would say test or whatever. All right, so that's this plot. And so let me show you how you open that plot without the window. So if you close the window and you hold pig down, so I'm gonna hold pig down and then hit fixture, that right here in the command line, you can see it says plot. Well, it says record plot. I don't want to record plot. Let me clear my programmer. All right, so pig fixture should be plot 1 open. Oh, it didn't do it. There it is. Nope. All right, I'm trying to do this with the mouse. Bear with me. All right, pig fixture. No. Pig fixture. It's not doing it. There it is. Pig fixture. Finally got it. It's plot. And I know I want number 1 and I want to open it. So there you go. So I just opened that plot and I didn't need the directory. It's easier to do on the console than a PC with a mouse. But that's how I would normally use it. And now I know this is plot number 1 because I've labeled it. Notice it doesn't tell you anywhere else that this is plot 1. But I labeled it 1, and I would continue that with any other plots I make. I would continue that labeling system. Unfortunately, if you move your plots around in the directory, you'll have to renumber them in the name. But that's a good thing to do when you don't need the plot window. So when I apply the plot to my fixtures later, the plot window is always in my view. So having the number there easily tells me what plot I want to apply the fixtures that I've selected to. And we'll do that in a little bit. All right, so Noah at High End has already done a really cool video on pixel mapping, the basics on how to set it up and stuff. So feel free to watch that too. I'm going to do basically the same kind of thing he did. Is I'm going to grab 601, okay, and then I'm going to just do a circle for each one. I'll do a line version in a little bit, but for this, I'm going to just do a circle, and I'm going to zoom out quite a bit so I can do all 14. So rather than set this how I want it, the size and everything, I'm just going to rough them in real quick. And the way I would do that, I'm going to go to the console so I can show you real quick how I would do that even faster. So let me close this, because this is a quicker way. Let me show you real quick a quicker way of doing this. So let me close all this. Let me pump up my light a little bit for you. Hold on. I don't know if you can hear me way over there, but I'm going to try. So I'm going to open up my picture. So pig fixture 1. Oops. Pig fixture 1 open. There's my plot, and I'm going to zoom out a little bit, and then I'm going to show you real quick how I can drop these in real quick. So we did 601. So now we're going to go we're going to fixture next, and that's 602, and then we're going to select the circle again, and then we're going to just draw that in, and we're going to go fixture next, do the next one, fixture next, do the next one. Notice they're all over the place. It doesn't matter, just as long as they're in the basic. You need to do real small. And how many have I done so far? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So we'll do another one. 8, 9, 10. We'll just do 10 for now. I'm not going to do all 14. Okay, so now you'll see that we have all these. So that was just a quick way of how I did it on the keyboard, which is way faster than the PC. Now I'm going to go back to the PC. We'll leave that like that. So I'm going to go back to the PC now and show you guys. So we're going to go Let's see if I can do it again. Let's see. On open. Good. All right, did it. All right, so I'm back into this, and now that I have them, I want to kind of orient them all the same. Now, when it comes to laying out my plots, I always try and start 0, 0. So what I'm going to do is, well, the first thing I guess we can do is just size them all the same. So we're going to select all of their gangs. This is the gang button. I'm only editing the gang. I'm not editing the fixtures. I'm not even adding a pixel map yet. Just editing the gang. So these are all the gangs, all right? And obviously they're all different sizes, so we're going to make them all the same size. So let's start at like 150. Oops, 150, not 1500. By 150. Oops, sorry. 150. All right, so they made perfect circles out of all of those, as you can see. And I could even make them tighter if I wanted. It looks like I got a gap between. But there they are. So now that's done. Now the other thing I know I want to do is I want to put them on the Y of 0, but I don't want to do that now to X because then that'll just stack them on top of each other. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to turn on the grid. I'm going to pump up the grid to like 150. And then I think, let's see where this one is. I want to take the middle one. I guess I don't have a middle one. I got 10, so it doesn't really matter. So I'm just going to place these now in a nice even fashion. Once again, this is probably quicker on the console. Oops. And then I'm going to zoom in on those, and then let's just see where I'm at. Let's see here. That's pretty close actually to 0. Yeah, all right, good. I nailed it. I don't know how I did that. Okay, so there's the perfect circles. So just to recap what I just did, when you have large arrays of stuff, let's say like if these were color forces, I would have done lines. Now a lot of people, I'm going to just do another one real quick. I'm going to do another plot just so I can show you something. Let's go open plots. I'm going to record another plot real quick, just a quick temp plot that I'm going to open up and show you something. So if these were actual color forces, a lot of times people just grab all of them. If like, let's say there are a large array of them, or you have them set up in a weird way. So a lot of people just take 601 through and all of them, and then just do one big large array like this. Totally fine. There are advantages of it. It's definitely faster. You would obviously want to set this array so that if I turn on this fixture numbers, you can see I got 601.1 here, 2, 3, and then all of a sudden somewhere down here I'm getting into 602. So you see I got 602 and 603 on the same. That means because my grid is not it's not laid out with the correct numbering of fixtures. So I know there's 12 pixels basically per fixture, so you would probably do something like bump that up and bump that down. So now you have, let's see if I do it like this, it's a little easier. So now you have 601 through 0.1 through 0.12, 602, 0.1 through 0.12, 603, and so forth. And you can change this orientation using, in the gang editor, you can change orientation over here. So you can change where the first pixel starts, where the, based on whatever corner you want to start, and then the direction and flow of the pixels, you can change that as well right here. So right now you can see these arrows are going left to right, and that's what I have going. I have 601 starting in the top left corner, 601.1's here, and it goes left to right, and then it comes back to the next one and goes left to right. If I had done this, then 601.1 is still here, and 601.12 is here, but now 602.1 is here. So now I'm going like a zigzag pattern like this. Totally fine. So obviously you can orient these using these buttons here however you want. Now, going back to what I was originally saying, this is totally fine to do an array like this. Sometimes I actually do this. But The problem with this is if your rig changes, or let's say you add more, you can totally add more. I can add more pixels like this and just drop in the actual pixels. But in my world, sometimes the actual layout of everything kind of changes. So what I usually do is I actually just do one fixture at a time. So 601, just kind of what we did with the rings. And instead of using the array, I use the linear tool and just start drawing them in. So then you'd go fixture next. So it'd be 602, and I would draw that one in. And so I just keep doing all this. And then once I get them all, then I grab all of them and I set their rotation to 0, and I set their size to whatever I want to be, 250. And now I have, basically I have individual fixtures to use. So I have, this is a color force, this is a color force. And now with the grid, I can start arranging them how I want them. So if it is a large array like that, I can just start putting them in order vertically or horizontally or however you want. That's the beauty of this, is now if the layout changes, if they say, hey, instead of going horizontal, we're going to go vertical, you can change that and they go, oh, and you know what, we're going to stagger them or something, whatever. They can. So now I can take them and change the layout however I want. This is very handy also because another thing I do is I'll create a plot that's what's basically my preview plot, and then I'll create a plot that is my pixel map plot. I've talked about this before on other tutorials. The idea is that you do a master layout plot that has all your fixtures, kind of how you would have it in your actual lighting plot. So the rig looks very much like it does in reality. The layout and the orientation of everything is kind of how it is, and that's what I call my preview plot. So I can look at that as a whole and see where everything is. Now I don't put pixel maps on that. When I want to pixel map stuff, I'll make a copy of that, or I'll create a whole new pixel map like what we're doing right now, and I'll use that instead. And then when I apply those plots to the, when I apply those pixel map plots to the fixtures and they start running the media on there, my preview plot sees basically still shows me those fixtures running as they would. So this is just another way. I'm going to save this plot because we might come back to doing a linear one. I'm having a problem saying linear. Okay. So let me go back to the plot we were working on. We're gonna go. Okay, so now we have these arranged kind of how I want, and if those of you don't know, this is sort of similar to a rig that I did for Guardians of the Galaxy 2, and that's why I'm going to do this, because there's some areas in the programming part that I'm going to show you that I did. So I could now that I have this layout, I could do a couple things. I could pixel map each one, or I could pixel map all of them together as one. Now, there's a lot of confusion some people have with pixel maps on top of pixel maps. You don't want to do that. I can't have, I'm going to apply this pixel map right now. So I'm going to, over here, I'm going to choose the pixel map editor, and I'm going to choose the pixel map tool, and then I'm going to now draw in a pixel map across this. Now, I didn't see there. Okay, so there's my pixel map. I probably would do something like center at 0, 0. And why didn't it? Oh, see, that's 0, 0. So now I know I need to take all of these Johnnies. We Americans say Johnnies when we talk about things. I'm going to put them right in the middle there like that. Okay, so so there's my pixel map. Now, obviously, I'm just doing the whole array of fixtures rather than individual. Now, if I wanted individuals, I would not go in here and draw, even though you can, I would not do this. Because the problem with that is now the fixtures are going to, they're going to accept the media of whatever pixel layers you assign to these, right? Based on the plot that is applied to them, meaning this is plot 1. So these fixtures right here, if I was to select them and I was to apply plot 1 to them, that's telling the console that, oh, you want these fixtures to output whatever comes across the pixel map that's on them. The problem is you have two different pixel maps on them. So which one does it use? It doesn't know. So it's not going to work. So you can have more than one pixel map on a plot, but don't overlap them. So meaning I can have something here. It can't be the same fixtures, obviously, or maybe, no, I don't think it can. It could be something else. And that's going back to what I showed you a minute ago on my fire plot. I had that same exact thing. So if I go into this, let me zoom in a little bit. So you can see I have multiple pixel maps on this plot. Pay no attention to the big color blocks. Those are just background colors for just show. It was just because the groups of these fixtures are the magenta, the groups for these fixtures are the orange, and so I use color coding across groups and pixel maps. The pixel maps are the actual white boxes, and you can see I have a ton of them in here, but none of them overlap, and the fixtures that are within them are independent, meaning there's no duplicates of the same fixtures in any of these pixel maps. This basically means that any of these fixtures, any of these arrays of lights that you see, I apply plot 4, see how I labeled that plot 4, I apply plot 4 to them, and they will use whatever media is running within the pixel map they are in. I hope that makes sense. If it doesn't, I can come back to that later and I can explain it in more detail. But that is something a lot of people don't understand, is it don't overlap your pixel maps. It's just, you're not going to get, you're going to be confused and it's not going to work, and it's just not a good method. So how would I do it? What I would do then is I would just duplicate this plot, number 1, to another plot, and you do that in the directory. Here, we'll do that right now. So if I open up my directory for the plots, I would just copy this one. So I go this one, copy to 3, let's say. Or maybe even better than that is maybe I move it to 11. Just put it right underneath. And now I want to label this 11 dash individual. Let's call it individual because those are individuals. And then this one, let's rename that one overall. Okay, so now what I would do here is I would open up this plot, and I would, now I haven't applied any fixtures yet, any pixel layers to any of these pixel maps, but so I don't need to worry about what this is. Usually when you make a copy of it, it disables any pixel maps, pixel layers that are, but if I had already had a pixel layer attached to this on plot 1, the new plot would be no pixel layers are attached to it, because it's just assuming this is a new pixel map that you want to apply pixel layers to. So for this instance now, I'm going to take this pixel map and make it square. So let's go 400. Let's go 350 by 350. And then I would probably turn my grid on and then snap that over here to this grid. That's a little big, so I'll go smaller, 300 by 300. That's pretty good. I mean, I could probably go even smaller, like 275 by 275. I'm going to get into the sizing in a little bit too. There's some things you should consider. Well, I'll talk about it right now. When you size your pixel map, I don't know. I'm just assuming you're going to do things to your pixel layers, you know, like you rotate it or scale it or do things to it. But you should know that the pixel map box basically is defining the media size. So by default, the media fills that whole box, okay? So here's the problem when you do this kind of thing. So when you do this kind of thing and box it in real tight, let's say for example I have like a swimming pool content or something going across this, right? Now you know that your pixel layers, and we'll get into this in a minute, have all these different attributes to them: scale, position, size, intensity, effects, all these different things. Rotation is one of them. And when you rotate, the actual pixel map does not rotate, but for just demonstration purposes, I'm going to rotate this. When you rotate, sometimes if you have, I should really show you it this way. Let's say, for example, you have a pixel map that is more rectangular shaped. And let's say it's actually something like this. A better example would be the other pixel map. Hold on, let me open this one. So this one would be a better example. So I have all these fixtures. I want to move this one over here for a sample, just for show. And I'm going to do this. So if you were to pixel map that way, and then you run media on it, and then you rotate the media, look what's happening. The media would basically doing the same thing as what I'm showing you here, and all of a sudden now only these pixels are going to be. So what ends up happening there? Well, then you have to take your pixel layer and scale the X, so you have to, or the Y, the X in this case, to cover it more. So a good thing to consider is how you're going to be playing the media, and maybe keep it bigger so that when you rotate the actual media, not the pixel map, but the media, it always covers that. Now you do have scale and position, and you can edit that if you want to, but I'm just talking just down and dirty. If you're just going to run media and then rotate it, then this is a good thing to consider, is making the pixel map bigger than it kind of needs to be. So give yourself space, especially for the individuals. Obviously for the bigger ones, it's a little trickier. I'm not going to probably rotate this media. Maybe I will. And if I do, then I definitely want to make sure that I make this thing way bigger. So I'm going to make it like that. So that if I rotate the media across this thing, it's not going to cut off any fixtures. But I mean, again, sometimes I do cut off fixtures because I just didn't happen to make the pixel map the right size, and I'll just use scale on the pixel layers to fix that, and I'll show you that later. What is this going on here? What is the advantage of patching the fixtures like you did with the RGB fixtures compared to using the comment? Yes, Mark, you answered that question for him. Thank you very much. Yes, it's easier for when you use change type. Also, I find it easier because sometimes, well, I use a little both actually. I use compound fixtures, like the Color Force 72 fixtures is a good fixture to use, and I do use that sometimes. Sometimes when you have a lot of homemade type lights, you know, and it's multiple pixels, you might want to use the dotted version rather than the compound, so that you can have a little more flexibility as far as the numbering. Maui in the house. Wow, hello Maui. All right, that's cool. Boy, if I was to be quarantined, I think Maui would be a great place to be quarantined. Marco, hello, Marco. All right, cool. So I'm going to keep chugging along here. All right, so let's get into some fun stuff, I guess. Let's get into programming. I'm going to just look at my notes. I have my notes up here so I don't forget to tell you guys stuff. Preview plot I talked about. All right, talked about labeling plots I talked about. Okay, so this isn't part of the pixel map process, but it is part of the programming and setup process, and that's your kinds. So I have, oh wait, one thing I need to do that I have not done is, oops, I need to, man, it's so hard to use this shift key. Boy, Hawk PC, come on. Damn it. All right, I'm just gonna open up the plots. Okay, we're just gonna stick to this overall plot for now, but I did not assign pixel layers to it, so I need to do that. So I'm gonna select the pixel map, and then here you'll see this is where you actually patch the pixel layers. Remember I told you in the actual patch window, the fixture window, that's not where you really need to patch your pixel layers. It's where you patch your lights, but not your pixel layers. This is where you actually patch your pixel layers. So some things to consider. The first one you select obviously says layer 1. That is your bottom layer, all right? And they start stacking from there on. Each layer you add now. So you can have tons of layers. I've had up to, I don't know, I've had up to 20 layers or so. Don't ask me why. I think it was some weird instance that I needed that for some stupid reason. Usually I only do about 3, maybe 4. I think 1 or 2 is good. The 3 and 4 is actually my default And the reason I do that, and I'll explain that right now, is my first layer, I consider that my base layer. I'll get to that in a minute. And then I consider the layers after that to be the actual media layers. And then I have layers at the top that I consider my mask layers. I'll get into what mask and base and all that is later. These are just terms I use. These are not in the manual, so don't look for them in the manual. This is just the Scott Barnes version. All right, so I have one. Let's just add 3 to this one. That way I can show you the mask base layer. So 1 would be my base, 2 would be my media, and 3 would be a mask layer. And I can add multiple masks to that. So now I have just attached these pixel layers to this pixel map. So that is done. I can deselect that. I'm not going to get into the other parts of the plot view. 313, was it 313? Yeah, 313 introduced shapes and objects, which now you can put all kinds of crazy stuff in there and make really cool plots. I've already done a video about that, so check that video out if you want to see more about that. And that's on the Facebook group. Okay, so here's my overall plot. So I'm going to size this now to fit. We'll get rid of this, and we'll go here. Now, you'll never see media, even though this is the size of the pixel map, you'll never see media on there because it doesn't preview the actual media. It only shows you the pixels that are responding to the media. So I don't technically need to see this. I could actually move this group down. I could actually size this across and then zoom in on my fixtures like that, and then maybe move my group over here if I want and call that, and then we're going to record that as a view. So we'll make that 1, and we'll label that view my main view. Okay, so I don't need to see the rest of the pixel map. I only need the fixtures. Now this also kind of goes back to where I might actually, instead of having this here, I might have my whole preview plot, which is the whole rig, including these rings that I've made in there. But since I don't really have anything else to show you for this version, I'm just going to use this plot as my preview plot. The other cool thing about having a preview plot is you'll notice that the background is that light gray because that's the pixel map. So if I zoom out of that, it's not the black. The great thing about using a plot that's your preview plot without pixel maps is you get that nice black background, which makes it a little cleaner and a little nicer, pops off the screen a little better. Not to say that you can't preview with the pixel map. That's what we're doing right now. But obviously, it would be cleaner and look a little sexier if it was black. So let's make some groups and stuff. Now, what I would do here, I'm going to get into my kinds in a second. So I'm going to go 601 through 610 because I only did 10 of them. And I'm going to record that as my fixture group. And we'll go ahead and label that. We'll just label it 601 through 610. Done. Call it whatever you want. I'll call it that. So then I would color code this. Usually for my style, anything that's like RGB type thing, I give it like a little magenta color. And then now my layers. So I'm using 1 as my base layer. So I'm going to put 1 right here, and I'll tell you in a second why. And I'm going to call that layer 1 base. And then I'm going to do 2 is right here. Layer 2, we'll just call it layer 2. And then I'll have 3 right above it. Now you're probably wondering, why are you making groups for the individual layers? Easier access for me than typing in the number. I still type in the number 2, but as well. But this is sort of a layout that I like to associate to these particular fixtures. So this group of fixtures, I usually have, I have their pixel layers in groups as well next to it. Let me label that one layer 3, and I'm going to call that mask. Now, I color code these usually with just like this color or whatever, some sort of, you choose whatever color you want. But my mask layer, I usually make it black. So I'm going to do white, and then I'm going to bring that down to black and hit enter. And now I'll make that black. And that's just so my eyes are associated to that particular layer being a mask layer. Okay, so I stack them this way because it reminds me that this is my base, which is my bottom. Then the next layer up is this one, and the next layer above that is this one. It's just how my workflow is. You could totally put those across horizontally if you wanted, or not even have them at all and just use your keypad. However you want to do it, but this is sort of how I set up pixel map fixtures and pixel map pixel layers in groups. Okay, so user kinds. This is very important. If you don't use user kinds, I really recommend that you do it, not only just for pixel mapping, but for lots of things. For those who don't know, right here, intensity, position, color, beam, these are all kinds. These are default kinds, meaning the functions of the encoders and also how you suck in or touch in values to the programmer, which is masking. These are the keys you would use to suck in, you know, whatever you want. So if I had, like, let's say I have these fixtures right here selected, so they're in the programmer, right? If I do color and then touch, it's going to bring in the values of just the color parameters. Let me do that again. So if I was to select this fixture and just hit touch without using a kind, it sucks in everything. It sucks in intensity, and if it was a mover, it would suck in positions, beams, it would suck in every parameter. The difference between touch and suck, if you don't know, touch means even its default value, even if it's not programmed or in a queue or in a scene or running or anything, it's whatever value is there regardless of its status. Suck is going to suck in values that are actually playing in a queue or a scene, that are actually being used. So default values are ignored. They're not used at all. But kinds basically are a way for you to mask in what particular parameters you want to mess with. So if I select that and hit color and then touch, I can't use suck right now because I don't have any queues running. So these are the default values of the color parameters. So these are the default kinds, but you can make kinds. Obviously, color has a lot of different things. It has hue, saturation. Sometimes it has color temp, CCT, all kinds of color wheels. But sometimes you only want CMY, or you only want HS, or just hue. So you can make kinds for that. So that's for like any kind of fixture. For pixel mapping purposes, we want to make kinds for our pixel layers that help us program quicker and easier. So I'm going to build some kinds real quick to show you what I'm talking about. So we're going to go to hold open, and we're going to hit kinds, and this is your kinds directory, and as you can see, there's already 7 up there, and those are the 7 default kinds. You cannot delete those. Hog will not let you delete those, but from there on you can add as many as you want. So I'm just going to, by default, just going to hit record and make it 8. Oops, sorry. Hold record. Record. Why is it doing that? Oops. What am I doing wrong? Stupid mouse. Record. There we go. All right, so I just made that kind. It's empty. If I open it by holding open and hitting it, you'll see it gives you this kind editor. This is where you can build the kind, and basically it's every parameter available that you have patched into the show so far. So any fixtures that you have in there right now, which I have a ton because I have a lot of movers and stuff from the other thing I had, are going to be located in here, and you can expand them and bring them in. So what I want to do here is, for this kind, number 8, we're going to make that my scale. So what I want to find here is, I want to find, and you can search it, so you can go X scale, or actually, what if I just type scale? There we go. All right, so image. So there's an image scale, there's an X scale and Y scale. So I'm just going to take the X and drag it over and drop it in right there. And I'm going to take the Y and drag it in and put it right there. Z scale, I'm not really running 3D content, so I don't really need that. And keystone stuff like that, we don't need. So this is just my basic scale. I'm going to hit apply and close this. And then we're going to label this, this to be, I'm just going to call it size. So now when I select layer 1 like this, you can see that if I have this kind selected, there's my encoder now. My first encoder is going to be manipulating the X scale and the Y scale. If I hit beam, the default, you can see all of these different parameters just for that one pixel layer. You got position, you got file, folder, you got rotations, X, Y, Z, scale, wrap. So there's a lot of different parameters within a pixel layer. If we were using a real media server, this would go like quite a bit. You'd have tons. So these are and you have color also has some effects. You have in color you have the actual CMY and hue saturation, but then you have effects modifiers as well for the different effects you can apply to the pixel layers. We'll get into that in a little bit. But the thing is, by hitting just beam or hitting color, you can see I have all of this. What we're trying to do with user kinds is trying to break this down into individual particular kinds that we want. So we did one for size. So see, this is just these two. Now what we'll do is we'll open up our kinds again, and we'll create another couple of them more. So we're going to create one here, and this one's going to be, we're going to call this position. You can call it whatever you want. And then I'm going to do record another one here, and call that one rotation. My rotation kinds are going to include X, Y, and Z. You could certainly do a kind just for Z, just for X, and just for Y, which is kind of clean, because if you are only really working and programming with one particular rotation, you may not need the other. So it's up to you how you want to separate them. One more that we need, of course, is the media itself. So we're going to record this. I'm going to type that one, and we'll just call that media. You could call it image, you could call it content, whatever you want. Now, also, what's cool about this is sometimes I've had shows where I have hog pixel mapping going on, and I also have regular media servers going on too, like an Mbox. And I can use these kinds for both. So I think Mbox uses media as its name for its content, and hog uses image. So you could put both of those in the same kinds. You could put one on one encoder and one on the other, and depending upon what you're programming at the time, you can still use the same kinds. I need water. Hold on a second. Just spilled my water. Okay. Okay. I just spilled my water. Okay, now I want to populate these kinds that I made. I did size, so now let's open up. Position. I'm just holding the O key on my keyboard, make it easier. So this one we want to do position. Oops. Oh, I think I can just do X. Image movement. There we go. No, not image movement. Image position. There we go. So I want to do X position for the first encoder, and then where is it? What am I missing there? Where's my Y? I don't know why I didn't. Oh, because I had X. I had X in the search. All right, so Y and X. That's all I need for position, so that's done. And then now I'll open up rotation, and we'll just go down here to rotation, image, position, image. All right, so I want all three. So I'm going to do X, and then Y, and then Z. Hit apply. And then I want media. So I'm going to open the media one up, and then we'll go down here to image. And we want, so for this one I'm going to do image layer, and then also folder. Where's image folder? Image library. There we go. So hit apply. All right, cool. So there we go. So these are my kinds, and I could even color them. Sometimes I color my kinds depending upon what they're doing. Like I'll use yellow for media stuff and purple for movers and whatever. And now you can see there's my different kinds that I have, and I can use. This will help us in programming media on these pixel maps. Okay, so I got into kinds. Oh, you know what else we might need is let me open up. You know, one more we might need is effects. So I'll just do an effects one. Usually media effect, even for the media servers, a lot of times effects are considered color parameters. They are in the hog as well. So let me see where I'm at. Image. I think. Here we go. Effects. Oops. Okay, here we go. Love that search engine. Okay, so I don't want mode. I can change mode on the toolbar. That's usually the easiest way to do it. I don't need a mode one. Usually I just want my modifiers though. So effect one, we'll just do effect one for now. I won't mess with the other. There's 3 total. As you can see, there's effect 2, mod 1, 2, 3, and then effect 3, mod 1, 2, and 3. Oh, actually there's 5, isn't there? I think there used to be 3. Oh, there's 5. Huh, whatever. So I'm just going to do one now. Effect 1 is what we'll play with today. So there's that one. And then we'll label that effect 1. And we'll make it orange. I don't know. Okay, so now I have all my my kinds. So now with these kinds, what I can start doing is I can start creating some beam palettes. So what we should do is, let me add a beam palette. You know what I'm going to do is I'm going to just size this. I'm going to leave this view, and then I'm going to size, not this one. This one. Size this even smaller. Zoom in on that. And then over here, I'm going to just open some beam palettes. Now I'm going to record this as a new view. So we're going to record, enter. So now I have my main view, and then I have this one for editing purposes. Okay, so we're going to create some beam palettes. One of the first things I like to do with beams, and this goes with even movers, is select, before you have any cues written or any media running or anything like that, just select one of your layers and just touch every attribute. So remember all those attributes I showed you there's all of them. So they all have a hard value in them. And then I'm going to record that right here in my beam palette, and I'm going to call that, you can call it default or home. If it's a position, I'd call it home, or reset, or whatever you want. That just basically allows me to reset. If I'm in the middle doing something like I want to start all over, I can just reset all the parameters back to where they need to be. You can do that with using the dot key and touching all the encoders as well, but you would have to touch quite a bit of them. So I just like to make a palette that's basically default. This would be sort of similar to your color palette. You might have a white or open white. This would be sort of my open beam basically for everything. It clears out all the stuff that you would have. And obviously I just touched the pixel layer. If I had movers, I would grab a mover or one of all the fixtures, or even just the whole rig, and just put them all on, touch all their defaults, and then record that as my default beam, so that if I grab anything and I want to reset it, I can. Okay, so now let's start playing around with media. So the first thing we have to do now, I didn't touch on this, and I need to touch on this, is when you have your pixel maps, and you'll notice that's kinds. I don't want to do that. I want to do plots. Okay, you'll notice in the plots, you got these little buttons right here, RGB, CMYI, and HSI. Okay, so what this is basically implying here is which parameters you want these plots to be applied to. So when the pixel map takes over, it's going to utilize either your RGB parameters, your CMY parameters and intensity, or your hue, saturation, and intensity. I don't ever use RGB. Some of you might. I don't, because it's not a color parameter. Hello? But CMY I use quite a bit. And you can actually do just intensity, but the thing you'll have to do is you'll have to apply the plot and then either knock out the intensity or just apply it just to the intensity if you want. There's a few different ways we do it, and I'm going to play around with that too. Hue saturation I've done a few times, but I'm pretty comfortable with CMY, so we're going to leave CMYI as our default button. So that always stays the same, and I'm going to leave that off. And so now we can select these fixtures right here, and we can apply our plot. So remember I showed you can do that a couple of different ways. You can open up the plots and actually apply the plot like that, which I just did. So you can see now those parameters are all have plot 1 overall attached to them. There's a thing about this, and I'm not sure if it's been fixed. Colin would know, or Jonathan would know. But if you save the plot window in your view, and you apply the plot to that. So let's do that. Let's do that one more time. So let's just say this is my view, and I select all these fixtures, and then so I'm going to apply this plot. The problem now is if I do something else, it's still, the command line isn't like complete. You have to hit enter, and now you can see it's complete. So if I had started doing something else, it could affect what I had going on in the programmer. So that's not really a bug. It's just by design it's that way, and it needs to change. But that's one of the reasons why I don't use the plot window. The other reason is it's just a window I don't need, so it takes up space, and all about real estate. So the way I do apply it, and I showed you a minute ago, was I grab my fixtures and then I go pig fixture, which is now plot. No, didn't do it. Try it again. Pig fixture. There it is. So you can see right here I got the fixture selected. Now I've just hit plot. Basically, pig fixture is the same as if you had an actual button called plot. That's all it is. It's a plot button. So pig fixture is plot, and now I can say, because I see here that my plot that I want to apply is number 1, that's what, because it's in my label, I can hit 1 and enter, and then now you see I've just done the same thing that I did when I had the plot window open, but I don't need the plot window. I can just apply it with keystrokes. So now that's done. So I think to clear the programmer, the quick thing to do is just to go ahead and record this into a queue, and we'll just put it in 10, and we'll just play it. So now that queue is playing, and now we can clear the programmer, and we can see what happens next. So these are my base, my media, and my mask. This is just how I do it. So I'm going to grab my media layer, and you know what I just realized is I don't have media. So I need another window. It sucks only having one window. How do you nano people do that? Drives me crazy. All right, so I'll have some media here. I guess we'll just record that as another view. What the hell? All right. So now I have my queue list running with those fixtures. They have the plot attached to them. Remember, that's kind of like applying a palette. That's why I even said in the programmer. So if I select these and hit suck, you'll see in the programmer they actually have the label of the plot, just like you would a palette. So if this was a beam palette that said Gobo 1 or Gobo window, then it would say that. It's the same thing. You're using that plot as a palette, basically. So I can clear that now, and that's running. Now, with that running in the background, this is kind of like sample 1, I think it was. I can now just program by using just the pixel layers. So we'll just start off something simple. So we're going to apply this. Now, I just touched the media, but notice it's not running because I haven't turned it on. So I got to go to full. And so now you can see the media running through the pixels. And then with that at full, I can start changing it to whatever I want. And you can merge this into the queue that's running with the fixtures, or you can keep those separate like I mentioned before. If you had a massive array of fixtures, you're probably going to keep that separate, run it in the background somewhere, and just start a whole new queue list for your pixel layers. It just depends on what you're doing at the time. So there you go. So now we're running media across those. So let me show you a few things trick-wise that you can do. Let's say we only wanted intensity. So I'm going to leave this media running. I'm going to merge it into the same queue. Oops, I didn't do it. Try that again. Undo. Merge into one. Okay, what am I forgetting? Oh, it'd help if I had my playback panel going. Hey, there you go. All right. I only want. Okay, no panel. Program panel. All right, there we go. Okay, so there's my media running. It's at 97%. Shit. Okay, hold on. There we go. Stupid. All right, program panel. Okay, so there's my media running. So I have in this queue list, I have the fixtures running with the plot attached to them, and I have the media running too. Now, let's say I only wanted to play around with the intensity. So let's say in my color, well, here's my colors. I'm going to record that as a view as well. I guess I should start labeling these. So color, and then this one was my media. Normally I wouldn't have all these views because normally I'm on a desk that has more space, so I'd put all these windows in one view. But just for the sake of helping you guys out, I'm going to do this. Okay, cool. So there's a couple things you can do if you want just intensity. When you apply the, let's first of all, let's just, so if I go red only, you're not going to see any media coming through there because we don't have any cool media running. So what we should do is go back to media. We'll select this and do something that's a little bit more interesting. Let's do the amoeba thing. Yeah, and then we'll merge that into one. Okay. And the reason why I want to show this instead of the other one, because the other media, the other content was mostly just color changing. The intensity was really always the same, sort of. Here we actually have intensity changing as well as color. And you can see that's the default color, the purple and cyan color of it. Let's go to my main so you can see it a little bigger. And actually we'll turn off the numbering. I just turned off the numbering so you can see the pixels a little better. So we'll re-record that in their main. I'm just looking at some of your comments. Yes, Gordon, it's very difficult. Athens, Greece. Wow, that's crazy. Hello, all the way to Athens from sunny California. Okay, I'm trying to read some of your comments. Sorry. Acton, Massachusetts? We have an Acton right around the corner from me as well. Denmark in the house. Hello, Denmark. This is pretty cool. This is amazing that we're all locked up in our homes in different countries. Okay, so intensity only. There's a couple ways you can do it. So if I go back to these, let's do this. Let's, well, I guess what I could do is just to show you is if these were off and in their default, they would be like this. It would be 0, no color, and we'll apply that to our queue. So now that's in the queue. Now remember, in the queue, the media layer, the pixel layer, is still running. It's still going right now. It's doing that amoeba thing. You don't see it because I don't have any fixtures assigned to the plot right now, but it is going. Now, if I wanted to just do intensity, I could grab these fixtures. There's a couple things you could do. You could apply the plot. So I could go pig. I'm gonna try this again. Enter. No, didn't do it. Oh my God, the mouse key. All right, pig. Enter. There we go. And then 1. And it's going to apply color and intensity. Before I record this, though, I could just simply go color and then knockout. And now, look, it's just doing intensity only. So the pixel map's only applied just to intensity. And if I merge that into a queue, they would be that way. I could additionally start changing the color to red or green or whatever colors I want. And now the color parameters are going to basically have static value, hard values of whatever color or palette you apply to it, but intensity is still maintaining the pixel map. You can do the inverted version of this too. You could apply, let's do that now. You could apply the pixel map just to color. So I could do, let's say we'll reapply the pixel map. So now everything has the pixel map applied to it. The plot is applied to it, color and intensity. But I could override the intensity and just do full. And now you can see you got some craziness going on here because the fixtures are at full the whole time, but they're only receiving information once the media passes through it. And as you can see, video black sometimes can create some weird stuff going on. Don't really recommend this, but it can work sometimes. So basically, if you want to apply just color or you just want to apply intensity, you just need to do that as you program. You need to knock out the one you don't want. Likely you could just apply a pixel map to just cyan. I don't know why you want to do that, but maybe you do. So you don't have to do all of them. They're individual parameters, so you can apply the pixel map to all or some of those parameters. I hope that makes sense. All right, so I'm going to get into something interesting now. So let me just make sure on my notes here. Recorded views, color, diamond. Okay, all right. Yeah, all right, cool. I'm going to get something interesting. All right, so this is a this little arrangement here that I have, this little plot here, is very similar to something I did on Guardians, but instead of just 10 of these rings, I had 512 of them. Yes, 512 of these little rings. Was quite a mess. One of the things they wanted me to do, though, is they wanted them to sort of spin, but then also they wanted them to chase the rings themselves were chasing. There's something in the Facebook group about this from years ago. I posted about it, gave you more information about how I did it and how much information it took up and data. So you can go back and check that out if you want. There's no video. I don't think I have video of it. But I want to show you what I did on that, and it just popped in my head when we were trying to figure out how we were going to do this. So what I did is I took one ring. Let me see if I can do this here. So I took one ring. We'll do 601. And just go at full. So there's that ring at full. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the effects engine and just do a simple effect that spins them. Okay, so that's all I'm going to do. So I'm going to open up the effects engine. Oh boy, here we go. And in intensity, I'm going to do. We can do cyan. That's fine. We'll ramp up the speed to 50, and then we'll go 100. Yeah, that's good. And then now I'm going to use, oh God, I'm going to use this on, I would use the effect spread is what I would use. Can I use this? There's no spread here though, is there? Okay. Oh boy. All right. I'm going to do this. I'm going to group, I'm going to use segments. So I'm going to use segments, and I'm going to do segments to be 6, which is half of them, and then I'm going to offset. Let's see if this works. 0 through 333. Yeah, that's good. All right. So as you see, I got a little effect running now. where I've split it in half and I got two little tails of chase. I could probably make that ramp. It doesn't matter. I'll just do cyan, sine wave. All right, so that's the effect I have. Now, note it's just intensity though. I'm not doing anything to the color. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to copy that effect to all the other fixtures. Let's go to my main. So I have 601 selected now. So I'm just simply going to go copy 602. I think I knew all of them through 610. There you go. So now they're all going. Now I'm going to dump all those into a queue. So we'll just put those in our Q1. Try and keep it simple. And now you can see I got an intensity effect going on all of them, which is what I want. Now here's where it gets cool. I want to chase them now. So I'm gonna, so in order to chase the rings individually, I'm going to use pixel map for that. And the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to take. Let's go to my media, and we'll go that pixel layer, and we'll go down here to Dan's cool built-in media. Where's the white ones? Yeah, there we go. We'll do I don't know which direction these go. We'll do this one, and that one's already running. And then now what I can do is apply these fixtures to the plot, but only for color. Intensity is being used with the effects engine. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to apply the pixel map. God, I hope this works. I'm going to get good at this using the mouse thing. There we go. Okay, so now, right now, it's using. Well, I didn't affect. Why didn't? Oh, I did the wrong. My bad. I did the base layer. I'll talk about that in a minute. I want to change this layer to this one. Okay. Hopefully that did it. All right, so now I'm going to go back to what I was doing. I'm going to grab these fixtures. I'm going to apply the pixel map. So, it always takes more than one time for me. Apply these fixtures, add the pixel map. There we go, to 1. Okay, so now there's the chase going because I'm pixel mapping both intensity and color. But if I knock out intensity, I should. You can kind of see it. I need to do it better than that, I think. Only color. Maybe I need to change the media. So let's try that again. Not 1, but 2. Maybe I do something bigger. Oh, do I not have it on? Okay, I'm missing something. Let me grab my fixtures and see what's going on. So let me grab these and hit suck. That's doing the effect, and that's doing. I'm not sure what I'm missing here. Let's try this. Let's try 1, not 1, 2. And let's try just making it static. Oh, that works. I think I have to do. So I might have to play with the contrast a little bit. So your media layers, your pixel layers and intensity, they have not just intensity, but they have brightness controls, gamma controls, and contrast controls. So you can manipulate the content a little bit if you want. There we go. That's what it was contrast. So I had to pump up my contrast a little bit. So sorry about that. So now what you can see now, it's all about the content. So now what you can see here, what's going on here is the intensity parameters are using the effects engine, but you don't see them running until the media goes through with white content. And the white basically is pushing the intensity as well, because it's basically the color black when it's off and it's the color white when it's on. So these pixels are RGB, and so they need not only intensity, they need color information as well. Meaning you could have those fixtures all the way on. If I turn them on right now, here, let me just go to color and apply white to them. You can see they're all solid white, but I can also apply black, and that's the same as off. Even though intensity is on full, the color is overriding that, saying, well, there's no, because they're LEDs, there's no actual color being outputted. So I'm utilizing the color for the pixel map and the intensity for the effects, and it's giving me a dynamic effect like this. And what's great about this is when I did it, I don't think I actually used dance content, which is the bars stream through it. I actually took a bar, a static bar, and let me show you that. This is something I do a lot of. Let me go to media, and I'm just going to scroll down here to my content that I created a long time ago and is now on all the hogs. These are just static gradient shapes. There's a solid white, and there's just various horizontal shapes and circle shapes that have faded edges, so that they kind of taper off a little bit if you use them. You can spin them. But they're static, and the idea with these is you use the effects engine on your pixel layer to apply the movement rather than using the movement of the content. You have more control this way because you can actually have multiple layers doing the same effect and then offset them, and then you'll have basically a bar going through and another bar going through and another bar, and then that way you can color those bars. You can make them whatever color you want. You can even run media on them if you want. And you can rotate them, you can do all kinds of different things. So you have a little more control. And then the effects engine is the one that's doing the movement. I hope that makes sense. So if I took this one, for example, and we're going to use our handy little beam palettes we don't have made yet. So that's another thing you want to do. I didn't do this during the setup process, is you want to take, let's take this layer and go to our beam rotation. So you'll see here X. So we put our, I highlighted the user kind rotate. So I have my X, Y, and Z, and then I'm just going to hold set and touch this, and then now I can type in 90. And then you'll see in your programmer the only thing that's changed is the rotation of X, of Z. So I'm going to record that right here is 90. So we're going to call that Z equals 90, and then maybe you can change it back to 0 and do another one to rotate it back to 0, and record that beam as Z equals 0. And then let's just go ahead, just for the hell of it, make a 180. You might also want a negative 90 that goes the other direction. That's something, or some 45s. It's up to you. So this one we'll call Z equals 180. So that's that. So now I can, with those beams now, I can take this content, as you can see there, for whatever reason, if you wanted to rotate them, you could go 90, and now they're going through from top to bottom, or back to 0. So that, I forgot to make beam palettes. You're going to want to make beam palettes to go, and then having those user kinds is really going to help you out making those. So that's a little trick using the splitting the parameters up using FX Engine and pixel mapping. That's something I did on Guardians. How's everybody doing? Sweden's in the house. Wow, that's cool. Another German. Hello from Germany to Germany from sunny California. Mark, I'm reading your comments late because I'm delayed. So sorry. When I get stuck, I'll have to just figure it out on my own, I guess. Okay, I'm not going to do much more. I'm going to show you one more thing though, from a show I just did, and for that one, let's just release this. I'm going to show you how you can get dynamic effects just based on that. Okay, I'm going to erase that. Okay, I'm going to build that other plot real quick, but I'm only just build it with the two that are already in there. So I'm going to open up my plots and go to this one. Oh, no, this one here. Okay, so we're going to just mess with this for a second. So I'm going to take these and rotate them horizontal, and I'm going to move this one over. Something right there, and then I'm going to also edit this thing right here and cover both of those. Okay, so I'm going to do something real quick. I'm going to make a preview plot. Remember I told you about that. So let's just call this one our horizontal, and we'll call it 2 horizontal map. And now I'm going to copy this. So I'm going to hold copy, hit this and hit that, and then I'm going to make this my preview plot. So we're just going to call this preview. You can call it whatever you want. And then in that plot, we're going to open it. I don't want pixel map, so I'm going to take this off, get rid of that, and then I'm going to, let's just go ahead and say these are actual color forces. So their pixels would be square. We'll do square, and then we'll stretch them out a little bit more at 260, 270, 275. Okay, there we go. All right, and then we'll get rid of the grid and the numbers, and we'll just call that our preview plot. So let's put this in our main plot. So let's go back to main and then turn this off, and then we're going to open up the plot that I just made, the preview plot, which was number 4, I believe. So pig fixture 4 open. No, it was 3. Damn it. Pig fixture 3 open. Oh. Pig fixture 3. There it is. Okay, I'm going to resave my view. So that's my preview plot. Notice there's no pixel maps, and I have a nice black. And I'm just going to say this is 2 color forces that are side by side somewhere. And I think they're in the right order. Oh, well, 601's on one side, 602's on the other. That's still good. All right, so this happened on The Prom, the movie I just finished, the musical. I built an effect using media, and so we're going to do that now. So okay, there we go. I'm going to save this view as my media view. Okay, so here's the thing that I did. We're going to take the fixtures, and this time it's only 601, 602, so we're only going to do 601 plus 602, and record that as this one, and we're going to label that 601 and 602. All right. Just Cali. Okay, so these fixtures are the ones we're messing with now. Instead of all 10 of them, we're just going to mess with these 2. But I'm going to use, so for this pixel map, I'm going to use layers 4, 5, and 6. 4, 5, and 6. So 4 now is our base, and I'll get to that in a second. And 5 is our media, and 6 would be my mask. I know I haven't talked about that yet, and I will in a second. All right. Record that media. Okay. For those asking, yes, this will be replayed. It's gonna remain on the Facebook group, and I think also High-End, ETC and High-End are going to get a copy of it and have it available on the My ETC website. I believe. I'm not sure. I am making a recording of this, so it will be available somewhere. But it's definitely going to stay in the Hog group for those who are asking. All right, cool. So I'm going to grab these fixtures now, and I'm going to do something very simple. I'm going to apply plot 2 to them right now. So we're going to apply plot 2. There's no media running because I have layers 4, 5, and 6 have nothing going. I'm going to make a new queue list. So we're going to start with this one now, and I'm going to need to bring that in. Oh, I'll just bring all these up. Okay. All right. Programmer panel. All right. So I have Q2 running, and it has these fixtures applying plot 2 to these fixtures. Now what I want to do is just get the media going, and I'm going to do that based on how I explained it a little while ago. So obviously 4 is going to be our base layer. So layer 4, you could call it 1 again if you want, but I would label that base. And then I think I only really need 1 layer. Well, no, I'm going to do all of them. So I'm going to do 5. Layer 5. And then I'm going to do 6 is my top layer. Okay, and I would probably color them the same, and I probably would label this one base and this one mask, but I'm going to try and move things along. So here's what I'm going to do. These are now receiving information from this plot, and there's no media running, so we're going to get some media going. And I'm going to use the static stuff. I'm going to show you what I was doing on the prom. I'm going to use, let's use this bar right here. Turn that on. They should light up. Yep. And then, actually, we'll use this one. And then now I'm going to use beams. Oh, let's re-record this too. So pixel. Oops. Let's do this one. What? Is it 2? Yeah, 2. I'm going to re-record this. All right, good. All right, so I'm going to grab this layer and go to media, and I'm going to go to my statics. Grab this one, turn it on, hit full, and then I'm going to go to my beams. I'm going to rotate it 90. So there you can see there's the gradient edge right there. So imagine that piece of media right. Where is it at? This right here, this bar. I just turned it 90, so now it's 90, and you can see the feathered edges are actually right here. So if we move that thing across, we go to our kinds of position, and we take the X and move it across, you can see that it's going to move over. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and move this all the way off so you don't even see it. Okay? And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to apply effect to that layer to move across. That would be a ramp effect. So with the layer selected, I'm going to go to my effects engine. Whoops. And I'm not playing with intensity, I'm only playing with X. So we want to highlight X only, and then we're going to do, I think it would be ramp or inverse ramp. Let's see. I'm going to speed that up a little bit. Ooh, too much. There we go. Now you can see it stops too soon, so I want to size that up a little bit. Let's go 150. So there we go. Now it's going all the way through. So now I got that bar going all the way through. And now what's cool is we're going to I'm going to show you something, and then I'm going to do a few different things to this because there's a couple of different things I can do that dynamically affect what you see. So I'm going to merge this into my queue. So remember, that's basically doing the same thing that the actual moving content is doing, but you have a little bit more control now. If I wanted to have another bar going through at the same time, a real quick way of doing that is, since I'm using layer 5, I can just suck in all those values. It's going to suck in the intensity, it's going to suck in the movement, the media, it's going to, all the information that's in that queue. Now I'm just going to copy that to layer 6. So now layer 6 is doing the exact same thing, and they're on top of each other. Now if I go blind and do this, now they're on top of each other. I just kind of reset it. There's also sync controls in effects, so if you wanted to sync them together, you can. But here's the thing, is with 6 doing the same thing, and I don't know why they're at 100. Do I have that? Oh, that's gonna drive me crazy. Sorry guys, hang on. I gotta put that code, that there we go. Now we go to nano. Program handle. Okay, good. So now both of those are doing the exact same thing, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to just select layer 6. I'm going to go to, you can do it in the programmer if you want, but I'm going to show you in the effects engine. So I'm going to go to that effect, and I'm going to offset it 180. So now what you're going to get is you're going to get one going. Now, here's the thing. The reason why you don't see the other one going is because the black part of the content is blocking the layer underneath. So number 6 is the only one we're seeing because 5 is underneath it. So this is where you need to apply an effect, a color effect. So with both of them selected, you don't really need to do 5, but 6 definitely needs it. So we're going to go effect 1, and we're going to take effect 1 and go transparent black. And then we're going to take the modifier number 3, and we're just going to set it all the way to 255, which is full. All right, so now we should see both of them. It looks like they're kind of out of sync a little bit, so I'm going to grab them and do this. And then I'm going to grab both of them and go, do I need to sync them or not? I don't think I do. Did I do both of them? Offset 0. Now I'm just going to do 6, 180. One thing that would help me do this is if I take 5, let's take number 5 and make it a color so I can see which one's which. So we'll take 5 and we'll make it red. I'll go back. All right, so now you can see a little bit of it shining through. I think what I need to do is take them both, go to my effects engine. Oh, I keep grabbing both of them. I'm going to go to effects position, and then I'm going to go over here to sync. I'm going to hit set, and I want it to sync to what's going on the list and the fixture. I want to do the fixture and I think function too, but I want to sync them together within the list. So this is going to basically hit enter, and now if I merge that into the queue list, it should be together. Maybe I need to play the queue again. Well, let me take 6 now and offset it. So I'm going to go ahead and go position, suck, and I used our position kind that we made. Take this, go 0. There we go. I don't know why. Maybe the other one's already, I don't know. There it goes. Merge 1. Okay, so now I have, you can see I have an alternating effect going on with the 2 bars, which is what I was wanting to get. So that's there's a good example of how you could use a color effect to mask out the blacks. You can also mask out whites and colors as well. So if you want to get rid of a red background, you can get rid of a red background. I'm not going to dive too much into the individual parameters of the effects. Just play with them. One's for tolerance, one's for amount. I don't remember the other one. Anyways, you play with them. I usually just set, for black, I just set all the way to full. Modifier number 3 is the amount, and I set that all the way to full. It gets rid of all the blacks. It maintains the gradient, and it also doesn't apply the effect to your color black. So what does that mean? So if I here, I'll show you what I mean. I'm going to turn let's turn layer 5 off for a second and only use layer 6. Okay, so layer 6, remember layer 6 has a transparency in it. And now this is where a good example of now why I use base level. Let's say, hey, I love the effect going through there, but I don't like them going to black. I want to give some sort of glow to the background. Well, this is where you use your base layer, and since the blacks of the video, the black of the layer 6 are transparent, anything underneath are going to come through. So the base layer, I could just simply select a static white and set it to like maybe 20%. And now you can see you have a base layer of 20% always on, and then you have your content going through, and since the blacks are transparent, it's just the white part that's going through. This is what the base layer is all about. So I'm going to apply that to my cue, and now you can see there's my effect running. Now if I wanted to do 5, I don't think I have the effect applied to 5, so I'll show you how we can do that real quick. I'll take 6, right? I'm going to select 6, and I'm just going to hit my kind for effect. I'm going to hit that effect. Now I should have done one thing, but it's okay. I'm going to suck in the effect values, right? And I'm going to copy them. So I'm going to hit copy to 5, enter, and then with 5 selected, I'm going to go ahead and change that to transparent black. So now 5 has the same transparency effects as 6, and I'm going to merge that into 1. And then now if I take 5 and turn it on, you should see I have my base layer still on, I have my red going through, which is 5, and I have my white going through, which is 6. Does everybody understand that? So I'm using the transparencies of the black to allow the layers underneath to come through, and I'm using the bottom layer as a base. I don't need any movement. I mean, you could do movement if you wanted. You could take this and apply this snow effect to it. So now my base layer is actually doing something crazy. It's doing like a little snow effect. I'll pump it up to 40%. So now you can see there's that base layer going, and then there's the bars going through on top of that. So you can do all kinds of crazy stuff with your base layer. But for this purpose, I'm just showing you a background static intensity level. Obviously that is a layer. You can change the color as well. So you can go in here and change the color to light blue. And now if we go back to our main, here's our preview. So remember we were messing with everything here when I was building it so that I could see the pixel map and actually manipulate it. But then my preview is showing the results without a pixel map on top of it, which is nice. It's just cleaner, easier to look at. So there's the blue background you can see, and I'll pump that up to 550. So there you go. So that's how I use base layers. Now you were asking me, you were probably wondering about my mask layers. So when I have large arrays of fixtures, I can certainly just select some of these, and turn them off. Those pixels are now off. They're not receiving any information at all. But let's say they tell me, hey, look, these first 6 pixels here are a little bright. They're a little too bright. Let's dim them down a little bit. So the way I would do that is I would use a mask layer. So I have all my layers running right now. That's an easy solution. I'll just go in and add more. I'll just go to setup, and I'll go to patch, and I'll go to my fixture scheduler, and I'll go to show. No, I don't want to show compounds. I'm going to show what I already am using. There's my hog pixel maps, and I'm going to just +1 on that. So just going to go, I already know it's 7, but you could just go +1 and hit enter, and now I'm at 7. So there's 7, and then you'll see there's a number 7 right there. It's not assigned to anything, so the next thing I got to do is go back to my pixel map, and then here we'll expand this. Go back to my pixel map, select it, and then attach 7 now as another top mask. So that's another layer on top of the others. Doesn't affect anything I got going already. Obviously you can't go one underneath, so you always have to keep in mind that your base is the bottom floor. You can't add another layer underneath the base. So plan ahead when it comes to how many layers you need and what their purpose is going to be. That's why every time I've been doing stuff for you guys, I've been only using the middle layers to start stuff off as far as movement, because I know that my base layer is my base layer. Okay, so now that I have a 7, I can move these down. So move this, move that, and then we can add our 7th layer to our groups, and we'll call that layer 7 and mask. Okay, so here's what I would do in this situation when they want to save a certain section. Is I'm going to take 7, and you can either use the black content or you can use the white content and imply a color black, which it's the same thing. It doesn't matter. You want black basically. I'll tell you why I use white though at first. White helps me find it when I'm moving it around. Obviously you don't see the media across the entire pixel map, only across the pixels. So sometimes when you have a very small pixel map of fixtures, it's hard to see where things are. So I'll usually maybe just take that and make it a color like yellow, and then we'll go back to here and I'll turn it on. It's going to be full because it's the top layer, so it's all over the place. Now I'm going to use my scale to scale this down. So we're going to use our scale kinds, and we'll take the scale of X and we can just slowly bring that down, so it's probably going to be fewer pixels. All right, so right about there. And then now we'll use our position, and we'll position that over the section that we want to dim down. Right, so we'll just move that over here. Yeah, somewhere in there. Now I'll switch the media back to black, or I can just take the color instead of yellow and just use black. And then now if I go back to this, you'll see there they are black. That's because I have the layer at 100%, but I can just dim it to 50. Basically it's an inverted intensity. So full is all the way at 0 and 0 is all the way at full, because it's black content on top of everything else. So now those values are changing the same as all the others, but because I have the mask over them, their levels are lower. So you can set whatever, if I want them to be 30%, I'd set the layer at 70. If I want them to be 70%, I'd set the layer at 30. It just depends. That's masking. And that happens a lot. Now, obviously, if they just want to kill a section, you can just select those fixtures and just turn them off. Just set their value to 0, and then apply the pixel map later when you need them back on. But if there's a large section or a particular fixture that is too bright, or they need to dim it down, use mask. It's great, and you can add as many as you want because they're the top. So you can keep. So I can have a mask there, and I can mask over here. I use mask a lot, even in regular pixel mapping outside of Hog. I use mask layers. Very, very helpful, and that's what masks do. Let's see if there's anything else. Oh, one more thing I wanted to show you with this particular effect going right now. This was so back on the prom, I did this effect. I don't need the base layer on, so we can save that. And just so it looks very much like I did on prom, I'm going to change the colors as well. So layer 1, I'm going to make cyan, and then layer 5 will make cyan, layer 6 will make magenta. I'm going to merge that in as well. So here's what they told me when I did this. So this was the first version of this particular effect that I did. This is what they were saying they wanted. And then they came to me and said, hey, that's really great, but what can we make it go from the center out? Let's just do like one goes and then another one goes. And so I was like, oh crap, I don't want to have to redo everything I just did, because remember, this is not actual content running through as a media file. This is me using effects engine on 2 different layers that are moving through. And I don't want to change that. So without having to change any programming I did, all I have to do is, my preview is going to stay the same. All I have to do is take my pixel map layer, this is really cool, and just change this to here. And then the other thing I'm going to flip it like this. And then now, I believe, if I go back to here, you'll see I'm getting that effect. So I didn't have to change any programming at all. I didn't change any of my layers. They're all doing the same effect, all doing the same color. I didn't have to change any of the programming whatsoever. I just dynamically changed the results by changing the layout of the pixel map itself. And if I wanted to go out instead of in, I would take this gang, flip it, and then take this gang and flip it back to where it was. And now it should be going out. So there you go. And that's what they liked, and they wanted that. The other cool thing about having separate layers doing this is right now they're doing the same rate and they're doing the same effect. You could have, like, instead of 2, you could have maybe 3. If you have a longer array of fixtures, you could have maybe 3 layers doing it, and you could change their rate slightly so that they're not, so it's like sometimes one will pass and another will pass real quick, and then another one will come in real slow, and another will pass real quick, giving you a more organic type of array effect. Here, this is a very, tempo type of effect. But you could make it more organic by just slightly altering the rates. Just fan those rates slightly on the position. Okay, so that was one little cool effect I did. I talked about transparencies, chases, circular patterns. I think that's it. I'm going to look and see if there's any questions. Holy cow, you guys are asking all kinds of questions. Hi, Sarah. I'm going to let you guys ask some questions, see if I can't answer some questions. And there's a 10-second delay, so you got to give me a second. Okay, someone asked about inhibitive. David, you asked about inhibitive. That is a request I've made a long time ago. When you have fixtures applied to a plot, you can't inhibit them right now. So with these fixtures, as you can see, these fixtures right here are running this effect. If I was to move that to here and use this as an inhibitor, and here I'll have to expand this. So there's my inhibitor on number 5, and I can bring that down. Oops. So I can bring that down. It's not changing the effect because the output is actually coming from the pixel map. It's not coming from the fixtures themselves. So this is a request and it is being worked on. I don't know how high up on the list it is, but it would be extremely helpful. Matter of fact, it would eliminate needing mask layers at all, because then I could just have a group of whatever fixtures I want and inhibit them and still have the media run through them. This is a very important thing I've asked for several times, and it is on the list, but as we all know, the list is long and there's things that are more important that they're working on right now. But it is something that we've talked about, and it is a very good question. But just know that you can't inhibit fixtures right now. Currently, you can't inhibit fixtures if a plot is applied to them for pixel mapping purposes. So very good question. Hello from Texas. That's where I'm from. Let's see, questions. Inhibited group masters don't work for pixel mapping. Oh, Aaron answered that question. Okay. Struggling with plots and pixel mapping. This is great things. You work on layers. Yes, you can pixel map. You can. Jonathan's right. You can inhibit layers, but just understand that when I inhibit a layer, it's going to affect all of the pixels. So you're inhibiting the entire thing. You're not inhibiting just one particular section. So yes, you can inhibit layers. Jonathan's right. Okay, I think I'm going to call it. I think I've covered. Let me just look at my list. What time is it? Oh, 2 hours. Perfect. All right. I think that's good. I think I covered most of the stuff. I mean, I get more detailed, obviously, than I showed you here, but this was just a few examples. The Guardians examples and the Prom example are two good ones that I do. So shoot me any questions. I'm on the Facebook group. You can always, I guess you can direct message me too. I'm very particular about who I friend request for. Usually it's just friends that I know in person and family, obviously. But also check out my Instagram feed. It's iLight, is it iLight 2000? Yeah, iLight 2000, ILIGHT. Here, I'll write it out. ILIGHT 2000. It's this. All right. I do post on Instagram as well, and then I'm on Facebook. You can find me on the group forum, and that's it. So hopefully you guys picked up on a few things. Hope you guys picked up on a few things, and shoot me any questions if you don't. This will be posted, and probably that would be a good place to ask questions in the comments, and then I'll check the comments from time to time and answer whatever questions. Obviously, Jonathan and Colin are more than capable of answering questions that I probably couldn't even answer. So you could always check with those guys. They're the moderators of the thing. And then, of course, don't forget there's the high-end forums as well. If you haven't signed up for the high-end forums, you should, because probably any questions you have already been answered by someone else already. So that's always a good place to go to and check out any questions that might have been answered. So thanks everybody for attending this. I appreciate it. It looks like it went really well, and I appreciate it. So happy hogging and stay safe. Wash your hands. Don't touch your face. Goodbye.